Today, we're honored to have the National Guard Color Guard from Joint Base Cape Cod present our colors. The primary mission of this detachment is to honor those military members of all services who will be interred in our Massachusetts National Cemetery in Bourne. Please stand as our colors are brought forward and continue standing for the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. Color Guard, post the colors. All right, we're going to play the national anthem now. Now we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody must be sitting down now, it's fine. I would like to welcome you all to our annual Veterans Day ceremonies. We hold these exercises to recognize the heroic veterans who have served in every area of the world to guarantee our freedoms as outlined in our Constitution. We would also like to recognize the thousands of first responders, the military and National Guard, and the ordinary citizens who selflessly pitched in to save lives in Houston, in South Florida, in Puerto Rico, in the conflagrations of California, and in the horrendous carnage in Las Vegas. Yes, this year we must give thanks that the spirit of America is strong and unbending. We will always be there to help our fellow citizens. On this day, November 11, 1917, the hostilities of World War I ended. In ensuing years, it was celebrated as Armistice Day, a national holiday. And in 1954, Congress passed a law declaring November 11th to henceforth be called Veterans Day, to honor all the veterans who have served to keep our exceptional country free. Almost every city and town in the United States will celebrate with ceremonies to express gratitude to all veterans. Veterans are a chain of patriots who have served our country with extraordinary bravery and honor. Our veterans and our military have made our country the most powerful that the world has ever seen, yet there are still problems that face us daily. This year, our country faced the forces of nature, weather patterns that we have never faced previously. But our servicemen were called and helped to save lives. Just a few weeks ago, I witnessed on television a rescue in Houston, Texas, where a Coast Guardsman was lowered down from a helicopter to save a man, his wife, and a dog. That helicopter and Coast Guardsmen are stationed here on Joint Base Cape Cod, and I'm sure you've seen that same helicopter flying over Southport. Since we entered the 21st century, we have a new contingent of veterans. Some of these veterans have done heroic service with 4 or 5 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. They return to us with scars on their body and brains. They need the care that our country promises them and sometimes fails to deliver. It is up to us to ensure that they are treated with the help and dignity that they deserve. When veterans leave service, they return to Main Street, USA with new skills and awareness and a desire to participate in the American dream. It is up to us to do everything in our power to help those who are willing to give up their lives for us. On this Veterans Day, we should pledge that veterans' medical care should be our first priority, and we should make sure that all veterans have educational and job opportunities. In the light of recent atrocities around the world in New York City and in Sutherland Springs, Texas, I cannot stress that we must be ever vigilant in our day-to-day activities. We must keep our eyes and ears open to any unusual happening and report anything suspicious to the proper authorities. If we see something, we must say something. I would like to introduce Peter LeBanc, Chairman and founder of our Veterans Committee. Peter?
Thank you, Al. I just want to take a minute to introduce the members of our committee that make this event so popular and important. Excuse me. Look at the outstanding attendance here. This is fantastic. Starting off with Charlie, if you guys would raise Charlie Atmos. Dennis Cassenbaum. Bill Enright. Dan Riley, Bob Lavelle, and Neil Harris. And above all, Al Benjamin, who spends many, many hours putting this together. Now, before he throws me off the podium here, 5 years ago, when I assembled a group of Southport veterans to form the Southport Veterans Memorial Committee, I did not know that we were starting an event movement that would become such an annual event supported by all Southport veterans and the residents. Since that time, the Veterans Group has raised money to build a very great Veterans Memorial site outside with our military flags. Also raised money for the Heroes in Transition. And last year, with a response to emergency need, we organized a drive for the toys for the kids at the base, for the children of the servicemen of the base. This year, we're also asking for your help in contributing unwrapped Christmas toys that you'll see in the red sleigh in the back. That'll be present for about 4 days before Don Cox will pick them up. And they should be unwrapped Christmas toys for kids of any age. And at this particular time, I'd like to invite Don Cox up to say a few words about his program, the toys for the kids at the base. Thank you.
Let me start out by saying this has been a year of catastrophes. Ours was last October, and since then I've been involved with 6 other catastrophes across the country and in Puerto Rico. And you people were an inspiration last year. One of the first phone calls we got was from Tori and Ron, and on Veterans Day you launched a toy drive that put us back on our feet. We were so successful that we were able to take the momentum we gained from the recovery of our fire and take it across the state and spread our programs. So we're starting here in Southport on November 10th last year, I believe it was. I want to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys were an inspiration to get us back on our feet after catastrophe, and this year we plan on servicing all the guard units from Cape Cod to Pittsfield, from Nantucket to New Hampshire. And thank you again for all you do for our military families on Joint Base Cape Cod.
I want to bring to your attention people who really step up to help us out. That's Steve Silver. Is he available here? He takes care of our flags every year, whether the wind is blowing or whatever it's needed. He does a great job, him and his crew. Paul Butters, are you here? Paul? Paul, you did a great job with the certificates and the posters in the back. And I actually had to call him about 8 o'clock last night for a special certificate, and he came through. Tori Spellman, where are you, Tori? Does a great job. Anytime you need something, she's right there. And Bob Fulton, the guy that's running our cameras. Thank you, Bob. I heard you did.
No, you should say back to our program.
Oh.
Come on. Now it's time to recognize our Southport veterans. We have 120 veterans here, I believe. And if you would please stand as your service hymn is being played. That's the Army. Next, the Navy. The United States Marines. The Air Force. last but not least, the Coast Guard. Now I'd like to have you all give a hand to all the veterans in one group. This year, with your help, the Veterans Committee has donated $500 to Heroes in Transition to augment the contribution of our developer, Ron Bondi. Ron has made a significant contribution to Heroes in Transition, and Ron would like to say a few words.
I just want to say I'm very proud to be part of this event. 20 years ago, well, can't believe standing here 20 years ago, as I did stand here 20 years ago, a little different building actually at that point, that I would be standing here today, 20 years later, saying I'm proud to be part of this event. So I hope that I can continue to do this every year. This country wouldn't be this country if it weren't for the people standing here. Our vets are number one in my mind. There are other things that are dear to my heart, but vets are it. And I cannot believe some of the sacrifice that I've seen them make, men and women, over the years. So thank you again for allowing me to do this, and I'll be doing it hopefully every year until I no longer can do it. So thank you very much.
Michael Prosek. You forgot them. You forgot to give us the money. Can I put it in my pocket? Sure. Michael Prosek. Where's Michael? Hey, Michael. Here we are. It's Ron's contribution and our contribution. Would you like to say a few words? Okay. Wait a minute. Get to wait for the mic.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting Heroes in Transition. I'd like to introduce our celebrity dog here, Zoe, who is actually assigned and has one stripe. She works for the Air Force on the base. She's a therapy dog. She was, if you saw the Enterprise, Mashpee Enterprise, she was featured. She likes a lot of people. Not just those with psychological problems. But we thank you very much. We appreciate your continued support for Heroes in Transition. Thank you again.
This year, our guest speaker is one of our own, Major Kristen Seapack, daughter of Kathleen and Dennis Casaubon. Major Seapack has been deployed to Africa, Afghanistan, and the Philippines, and is now based at Hanscom Air Force Base in Bedford, Massachusetts. She will share some of her experiences as a pilot in today's U.S. Air Force. Major Seapack.
Good morning. As you said, I am Major Kristen Seapack of the United States Air Force. One person who did leave out was my daughter, Alana, the best, most adorable daughter who's not too happy I'm up here today. So first of all, I wanted to thank all of you for inviting me to speak here today for such an important occasion. It's an honor to speak to and share my experiences with all of you. Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, was designed as a day to celebrate the end of World War I. The transition to Veterans Day was first envisioned by Alvin King, a shoe salesman from Kansas, who lost family members in World War II. Thinking Armistice Day was too restrictive, he pushed for a day to honor Americans of all wars. and the first Veterans Day was celebrated in 1953 in Emporia, Kansas. The local congressman took the idea to D.C., where he signed into law by Dwight D. Eisenhower on 26 May 1954, officially changing Armistice Day to Veterans Day. Veterans Day is a day where we can reflect upon how the actions of those who have served have shaped the future for all. We remember those who have served, those still serving, and especially those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Thinking of the heroes who join us in this group today and those who are here only in spirit, a person can't help but feel awed by the enormity of what we encounter. We stand in the midst of patriots and the family and friends of those who have nobly served. I'd like to ask the service members and veterans who are here to stand. I know you already stood, so let's do a little more exercise. Too often, your contributions to the welfare of this country are overlooked. You are part of the mere 7.3% of all living Americans that have served at some point in their lives. Your service today Your service today has shaped the military and the country we have today. For that, I would like to personally thank you for your service. Now I would like to ask the family members of any service member, past or present, to please stand. Thank you. It is never easy to send off a son, daughter, spouse, parent, or loved one, being ever aware that the next phone call or knock on the door could bring devastating news. Nor is it easy to be consistently uprooted to follow a service member from one location to the next. Thank you for all the sacrifices you have made. For all who just stood, again, I thank you for the sacrifices you have made and for putting your lives at risk to support and defend the freedoms and way of life we all enjoy today. I also thank you for the military that I serve in. I hope I can further the progress of your generation to provide a better military for the next generation. For all those who did not stand, your attendance here proves your support for our veterans. For that, I thank you. As John F. Kennedy said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. As many as there are veterans, there are stories of brave actions taken that have influenced future generations of military members. Since my career has predominantly been within the Air Force Special Operations Command, I'd like to share just a couple examples of such actions by those in ASOC. On June 15, 1945, Lieutenant Lewis Carl, a helicopter pilot, received a request from the 38th Infantry Division to evacuate 2 soldiers near Manila. The helicopter with which he was dispatched was a trainer aircraft, with only 195 pounds of carrying capacity in addition to the pilot and fuel, and it was used primarily for supply missions. When Lieutenant Carl arrived on scene, he was met with a situation for which he was wholly unprepared. The victim had suffered from a shattered hip, and Lieutenant Carl's helicopter was not equipped to accommodate a stretcher. Lieutenant Carl had no idea of how to load the stretcher victim into the helicopter. To increase floor space, Lieutenant Carl removed a seat and disengaged a control stick. Due to the victim's injuries, his feet had to be propped up on the rudder pedals, acting as a rudder lock. This eliminated any control over the tail rotor. Now, for those who don't know, tail rotor control is essential to successfully controlling a helicopter in flight. Despite the lack of control, Lieutenant Carl was able to deliver his patient to the hospital. Lieutenant Carl, along with 5 other pilots, successfully evacuated 75 to 80 wounded soldiers from the highlands of North Manila, and although they were not the first to provide a medevac flight in combat, they were the first to be targeted by enemy fire. Lieutenant Carl's actions and the success of the rotary wing operations in World War II helped drive future development and enabled 40,000 helicopter rescues in Korea and over 1 million in Vietnam. ASOC continued to lead innovation during the Korean War. In 1950, the 6,160th Air Base Group activated a boat section whose mission was quick recovery of downed pilots to avoid hypothermia in the Korean Sea. Now, when you think of Air Force, you don't typically think of boats. However, this unit was exceedingly successful, and despite the hazards of war, the 22nd Crash Rescue Boat Squadron never lost a boat and its speed and success led to their future use for infiltration and exfiltration of special units in North Korea and China for clandestine operations. Like in the two examples already described, many service members don't see themselves as being brave or special. They just say that they're doing their jobs. That's how it is for me. In the day-to-day grind, I just get the job done. I don't think of everything that goes into actually doing that job or the impact it may be having. But looking back at some of the things that I have been able to do because of my military service, I can honestly say that I've made a difference, just like all those who have served with me and before me. Although I didn't really realize at the time, the military seed was planted early for me when my brother mentioned to my parents that he was going to join Air Force ROTC, and the idea of the Air Force was further solidified when he was selected to go to pilot training. Now, as my mom can contest, I'm rather stubborn. So when I floated the idea of being a military pilot to one of my friends in the 7th grade, and he told me that girls can't be military pilots, I couldn't step away from the challenge. I ended up receiving an ROTC scholarship and was selected for the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training Program at Shepherd Air Force Base, Wichita Falls, upon graduation from Boston University in 2006. I was assigned to fly the U-28 out of pilot training, and that's where my AFSOC pilot career began. The U-28 is an ISR platform, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Essentially, we collected video intelligence used to track, identify, and build target packages, acted as an eye in the sky to provide real-time updates of enemy movements to teams on the ground, and could relay communications from ground troops to their leadership. During my 7 years of flying the U-28, I flew over 2,200 hours, half of which were in combat, and I deployed 7 times to Afghanistan, Africa, and the Philippines. I was directly engaged in the fight against terrorism, fighting along the most skilled, professional, special operators the U.S. military has to offer, both in the air and on the ground, all of which wouldn't have happened if I didn't get that little spark of inspiration from my brother. In 2015, my career path took a different turn, and I needed to cross-train into a different career field. Thanks to my husband, Michael, who was also prior military, I was already familiar with the acquisitions career field, and using his contacts, I was able to secure a position in acquisitions. I was able to move back to the Northeast and currently work at Hanscom Air Force Base. My office is responsible for ensuring that the avionics installed on military aircraft comply with civil airspace standards, investigating new ground and air technologies, and the installation and upkeep of U.S. radars used for air traffic control. Bottom line, we are responsible for all aspects of flight, making sure an airplane can take off, fly to wherever the mission dictates, and make sure they can land again safely. While I'm not directly involved in military operations anymore, my work directly impacts the ability of the military to execute missions. Now, I don't think that what I've accomplished in my career is groundbreaking in any sense, but I do know I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done if it hadn't been for those who laid the groundwork before me. The military I serve in today is full of professionals who do amazing things because of the foundation provided to us by the sacrifices of our predecessors. I wouldn't be standing here today without you, and someday the next generation will inherit my Air Force. I can only hope that they are as inspired by what we have done as I am by what all of you have done. In closing, I would like to leave you with one final thought by Crystal Woods that I think is especially applicable in this forum. To all those who care, you can't forever. Time steals the years and your reflection in the mirror. But I can still see the story in your eyes and your timeless passion that's never died. While your skin became tired, your heart became strong. The present became the past and your memories like a song. And though the moment at hand is all that we have, you've taught me to live it like it is our last. Since 2 words don't say thank you the way they are meant to, I'll try all my life to be something like you. Thank you.
On behalf of the Southport Veterans Committee and all of the people here at Southport, we wish to thank you for your service and thank you for this wonderful presentation. Kristen, you make me one proud papa.
No, she was talking about generations of training. I was in the Air Force also, and my class was 44B. That would mean I graduated in the second class of 1944. She is 3 generations away from me, I think. As most of you know, the Southport Veterans Committee supplies the service flags that fly over our property. Depending on weather, we usually supply 10 flags per year. Many residents have volunteered to donate a flag in honor of their veterans. If you'd like to honor a veteran by donating a flag, please contact a member of the Veterans Committee. Here in Southport, we have over 100 veterans who have served in almost every theater and every continent. Your Veterans Committee honors them by awarding them our retired service flags, and with this year, we have given away 27 flags. The recipients this year will be Robert Scott, Jim Saban Sr., Raymond Schumack, Lawrence Caprio, Jerry Murphy, and Jim Rigo. Robert Scott enlisted in the U.S. Navy as an ensign in April 1943. He was assigned to a wooden minesweeper based in Seattle. In March 1944, his ship sailed for Pearl Harbor and was outfitted with radar and special electronic equipment. They sailed to support the invasion of Saipan. Bob was involved with hazardous duty throughout his time in the Tinian, Southpan area. Bob LaBelle will present the flag to Debbie Scott. Jim Saban Sr. grew up in Abington, Massachusetts. He joined the U.S. Naval Reserve in 1948 and served his active duty in 1952 to 1954. He served aboard the USS Gwynn, a destroyer minesweeper assigned to the Mediterranean. Jim was trained as a Navy welder, but he had the necessary skills to be transferred to the log room, where he kept the records and other aspects of the ship's operation, as well as duty assignments of the ship's crew. Neil Harris will present the flag to Jim. Ray Schumack was drafted in 1945 and was shipped to Fort Devens, Massachusetts for his basic training. He was assigned to a Tennessee National Guard unit where he learned how to use every weapon in the Army's arsenal. The training was vigorous, especially the 20-mile hikes. After basic, the unit shipped out, but Ray was sent to learn about wire communications and how to run telephone wires in combat situations. Eventually, he went to Korea. Bill Enright will present the flag to Ray. Lawrence Caprio enlisted in the Coast Guard in 1951, and after basic training, he was assigned to the Coast Guard cutter Mackinac, serving the Great Lakes. In 1952, he graduated as an engine man. He was in charge of the engine room of 2 Coast Guard cutters based in Boston, providing general protection and rescue services. Dennis Cassabon will present the flag to Lawrence. Gerald Murphy, a Brockton native, enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1955. He was selected to serve as a seagoing Marine and served on the aircraft carrier USS Lake Champlain. Jerry says the history, traditions, and values instilled in him will always be part of his life. Bob LaBelle will present the flag to Jerry. Jim Rigo was the son of a career Air Force officer and followed his father into the Air Force in 1964. Jim chose electronics as his specialty and served in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam conflict as an electronic missile guidance and control specialist. Charles F. Thomas will present the flag to Jim. For full biographies of our recipients, see this month's Village Voices. It's much more than I could include here. We have another award this year to our outgoing Board of Governors President, Dan Riley. Dan Riley has played an important and productive role in the life of our community. He has served on the Finance Committee, the Scholarship Committee, and for the last 4 years as President of our Board of Governors. Dan also retired from the U.S. Coast Guard as a captain with 26 years of illustrious service. Peter will present Dan with our Special Service Award.
This Special Service Award was created last year. This is the second year of the Special Service Award. And it goes to an individual who has not only outstanding military career, but an outstanding service to the Southport residents here. And I know everybody will agree that Dan, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Unaccustomed as I am to speaking in public, particularly in this room, Peter made the mistake of saying I could say a few words. When I thought about that, I realized it's been 46 years to the day when I raised my hand in the Hartford recruiting office. Chief Wilson thought it'd be a good idea if we picked a date that we'd remember forever. And then they shipped us off to beautiful Cape May. So that's where the career started. I'd like to tell you another quick story. In General Powell's book, he tells a story about going with his wife back to her hometown for the holidays. And they stopped just outside of town to get gas. And his wife got engaged in a conversation with the gas station attendant. When he came back to the car, General Powell, he said, gee, how'd you know that guy? He said, oh, I grew up with him. I dated him in high school. And he said, well, gee, I bet you're glad that you chose to marry me. And now you're married to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Without missing a beat, she said, if I had married him, he'd be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So in that same spirit, in our 28-year relationship, anything that I know about, excuse me, helping others and serving others, I attribute to him. Peter LeBlanc, in his self-effacing style, didn't really tell quite the whole story of how this came about. It was a little over 6 years ago that he came back from somewhere with a great idea that he observed somewhere else in another association. And he had a vision for, first of all, what could be a memorial to service among the people in our association. And you might be surprised, there's a little bit of concern and discussion about how it could be done, how it should be done. But Peter gathered a group of people together, Al Benjamin, Bob Hutchinson, Wally Rucky, Steve Roth, myself, and Jim McCormick, I believe. And we went through the process, and we made a promise to everybody at that time at an advisory board meeting that anything we did with this program was going to be totally self-funded by the Veterans Committee. And to this day, that committee has kept that promise. Wally did a great job of keeping track of our fundraising. And at that point, Ron Bonby stepped up and said he'd make up any difference we had in raising the money for the flags, and provided some support in finishing up the actual monument there. But for those who are new to the community, or those of you that are visiting at any time, I suggest that you go over and take a look. We've done this particular service every year to recognize our veterans. We had to decide about the size and the number of flags and so forth. We talked about the armed services flags, we talked about the uniformed services flags. So in designing and creating the memorial the way we did, one of the critical pieces of it was the plaque and the stone that's there. And we carefully worked on the wording at the time. And if you have never been by and looked at that memorial, I invite you to take a look at it and read it, because we crafted it in such a way that it acknowledges all those people who serve and all of those people who have sacrificed for our country. And that includes our first responders, police and firemen. We have people here who've worked on the space program. We have people here who were in the Peace Corps, who were in foreign service. Basically, if you read that memorial and you feel it fits you and any sacrifice or service you did to support our country, that's what we had in mind. So we acknowledge you for that. We also, as Major CPAC both pointed out and so properly represents today, there's another group of our fellow citizens of Southport that need to be acknowledged, and she did acknowledge them very well. And that's our Blue Star families, the families who have people who are still serving our country and or have served our country in the past. And we have a large number of those in Southport at this point. So I appreciate that you acknowledge them and that you so well embody the service that they represent to our community. So thank you very much for this recognition, but more importantly, thank you to all of the members who still serve on the Veterans Committee, Bill, Dennis, Neil, Charlie, Bob, and of course still Peter and Al. They've continued the programs that you heard talked about. They've continued to provide informational programs and shared information to help our veterans who are residents here to know about the services that are available to them. So thank you very much for this recognition, and thank you for all you gentlemen.
Now it's time for a slight commercial. As most of you know, the Veterans Committee is a self-sustaining committee, and we do not receive any monetary help from the Southport budget. We rely on your contributions to finance our services to the community. In appreciation of your contribution of $10, we will present you with a waving U.S. flag pin. I have one over here somewhere, there it is. Or a decal that you can put on your car or your house. This is a donation, and we're not selling these pins. We're just giving you in recognition of the fact that you've donated $10. We also have a few house flags available. We will install a flag on your home with the help of the Woodshop personnel for a $35 donation. This is a wonderful flag, and I have one in my home. In fact, my quad has 4 of them. And as you drive around Southport, you see all these flags. It's a wonderful idea. At this time, I would like to recognize our flag donors. Joan Ellen Bailey, to honor her father, George Bailey, from the Navy, and George Vincent Bailey, an Army veteran. She gave 2 flags. Louis DeFinizio, to honor his cousin Louis Carl DeFinizio, an Army veteran. Douglas Faulkner, to honor his brother Dwight Allen Faulkner, an Army veteran. Alan Gladstone, to honor his father Louis Gladstone, another Army veteran. Liz Irvin, in honor of her stepfather Charles Whalen, a Navy veteran. And Linda Mollio, in honor of her husband Richard T. Mollio, a U.S. Marines veteran. Please stand for taps, singing "O God Bless America," and retiring the colors. And after retiring the colors, our Southport Sound will continue with 2 or 3 selections. Color Guard, retire the colors. everybody would please sit down. The color guard, would your color guard please come forward? We'd like to thank you for your service and your participation in our ceremony by presenting you with the certificate of appreciation. Here's the color guard, Sergeant Griffin. Thank you. I want to tell you now that refreshments are available with the help of Laura's Home Cooking and the Men's Coffee Group. And while you're seated, the Southport Sound would like to give you a few renditions of patriotic songs.
America the Beautiful. So if you will join in,
Before you start, after the next song, will all the veterans please come forward? We want to take a picture of all the veterans who are here.